we wanted to make sure that the board, the executive and the staff had a sense that they had some kind of choice in it. So we suggested we were going to do some visual impairment training, we were going to do some hearing impairment training. We already had contact with Autism Plus, so that came into it as well. And we tried to give people a range of awareness raising and training so that they had a broad sense of the difficulties that we were facing.
Been to all the training that was possible, which has been really enjoyable, really eye-opening, and really helpful to see the broader range of disabilities out there, but also giving us ideas and ways forward, and just making us think about the environment itself and how we need to conduct ourselves at work to be able to help people.
On the recent Makaton training, there were engineers there and front of house staff and managers and people right through the organisation. It's very much a family feel to the place, and everybody's sort of learning together, which is very positive.
The deaf awareness was extremely beneficial in terms of the awareness of the levels of communication and the fact that you don't need to use British Sign Language. You know, you can cobble something together and you can normally make yourself understood. People really appreciate that, but also some of the barriers that they may find within a museum like ours, and the distractions that different noises might have for them.
I would think that Kellam Island would be not very good for someone who's visually impaired. And then they said no. I spoke to blind people, and they find that the Kellam Island is their favourite museum to visit because of the Riverton engine and the smells and the sounds and the vibrations and basically the different atmospheres throughout the museum.
The autism awareness course was extraordinary, and I mean, one of the things that came out of that was, of course, we're all about accessibility for all and inclusiveness or inclusivity. But one of the things that came out of that was, from the autistic person's point of view, that isn't necessarily the best approach. You know, so for example, what they actually said was, rather than, you can't make the museum suitable for both us and for, you know, and for people like me, because what they need is more quiet and less light, and so you can't marry the two. And so what the best approach for them, as they said, was that you have a special day where the sound has been turned down. You create safe spots where they can go and be, you know, if they're feeling a bit wobbly, they can go and be safe and then come back out again. And so actually exclusivity in that sense was much more appropriate from their point of view, because then the museum would be tailored for them for a day, you know. And so I said to people, wouldn't it be great if we could do a Saturday, you know, where, you know, we did go through with advisors and say, yes, let's turn that lighting down, switch that light off, turn the sound down there, you know, and that sort of thing. And then you have a special day, and then they can enjoy it.
What I was really pleased to see is, as the project developed, doing not just the changes that we've made to make certain things more accessible, but also the staff development part of it, so that staff aren't afraid of how they can help people to come. Because I do think that sometimes it's because we're afraid of saying to somebody who's got some particular needs to access, what would help you, because it makes us look like we don't understand. So the staff development and that whole thing about trying to get everybody to have a different view in the museum. We've still got a way to go with that, but we've started on that process.
Being made to feel welcome is the biggest step. We can go to places and, as a visually impaired person, not encounter, we don't have problems with steps and uneven surfaces, but if the people aren't friendly, it's still a massive barrier. It could be a level playing field, but if I'm lost in the middle of that field and nobody there to ask, and can you tell me where to go to this, or where is that, there's no point doing it. And I think that has improved considerably.
I don't think you can go through the process we've been through without getting far better informed of all the different things that you need to be aware of for a public building. and going forwards, we can keep that in mind when we put in new displays in or changing any aspect of the building that we've changed to make it more accessible. We need to keep that up in other areas, or at least take that into account when you're making decisions.
But the cultural side of it has given us that different mindset is to how we now approach any new developments or new projects within the museum. That will, if not be at the back of our mind, you know, as a very minimum, will be at the back of our mind as to, ooh, what about this? Or what about that, in terms of an access. So I think whilst we've made some big physical changes and maybe not done all the little bits and pieces that we talked about initially, as we go forward, those little bits and pieces will just become a second nature to any future developments.
When we make changes now, we won't have to think about what we've got to include and what we haven't got to include. It will automatically be there for it to fit everybody, able-bodied, people in wheelchairs, anything. It'll be there. We won't have to think about it now. It'll come automatic. I'm sure it will.